Wildfires, once thought of as rare natural events, are now frequent, intense, and devastating. Besides destruction of property and loss of life, they drastically reshape our ecosystems, landscapes, and climate. But how exactly are wildfires impacted by our changing climate, and how do they act as agents of change on our Earth? Our names are Bree, Zach, and Ben, and today we'll be answering that question. Wildfires have three main factors. First is fuel, which is vegetation that feeds the fire. This can include dry grass, dead trees, or even fallen leaves. And remember, the more fuel available means a possibility for a larger fire. But how do they dry up? Extended droughts cause moisture to be sucked out of the soil and plants and into the atmosphere, turning landscapes into tinderboxes. A spark, known as ignition, is next. This is almost always caused by humans and usually caused by a simple mistake. The last factor, fire weather. High temperatures, low humidity, and strong winds. These conditions make flames spread faster and make fires harder to contain. The most famous example of this
catastrophe in California. A Los Angeles disaster movie roars to life.
Whoa! New wildfires have erupted in Southern California.
The third out-of-control wildfire exploding overnight in the Los Angeles area.
Catastrophic wildfires there have claimed the lives of at least 16 people now.
Nearly 180,000 people in the fire zones forced to evacuate. Tens of thousands of acres destroyed so far and climbing. And the death toll is expected to rise as burned areas are searched. Additionally, thousands of people left with virtually nothing.
But what remains after these wildfires finish their destructive path? The one we all know, smoke. These fires fill the sky with toxic particles known as PM 2.5.
Many compounds in smoke can be dangerous, but particulate matter poses the biggest health threat. These nanoparticles are 30 times smaller than the width of a human hair, 2.5 microns or less to be exact. They're so tiny, they can penetrate the membranes of human lungs, allowing them to damage the respiratory system and enter the bloodstream. Particulates can come from many sources, like cars, boilers, or power plants. But wildfires tend to be the largest source.
On the ground, fire strips away the vegetation that holds the soil together, leaving slopes very vulnerable to mudslides. But it's more than just the loss of vegetation. The heat from the fire bakes the soil, creating a waxy layer that makes it less permeable. This means water can't soak into the ground, greatly increasing chances of flash floods and mudslides. So why are wildfires getting worse? The answer ties directly to climate change, and I'll tell you why. Let's start with heat. Rising global temperatures, fueled by the greenhouse gas emissions, dry out the soil, evaporate water from vegetation, and extended drought season. Here's why this matters.
We know that the water vapor holding capacity of the atmosphere increases by about 7% per degree centigrade of warming. That means that every time you have an additional degree of warming or fraction of degree of warming, the degree to which the atmosphere can hold water vapor increased by a greater amount than the last time you'd warmed by that degree.
Imagine a sponge. As it gets bigger, it can hold more water and last longer before it's full, and you must squeeze it out. More water gets pulled from the ground and plants, making the environment even drier.
You increase both your potential precipitation extremes on the one hand and your potential flood risk, but also your potential aridity, extreme dry events on the other hand, and so potentially increase the risks of things like severe droughts. And by drying out vegetation, raise the risk of larger and more intense wildfires in many areas.
Now, add a spark, from lightning, a cigarette, or downed power line, and that landscape becomes raging inferno. But it doesn't stop there. Wildfires release massive amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Carbon that was previously being stored in trees and soil. Remember the 2025 wildfires in LA? 4.4 million metric tons of CO2 into the atmosphere, equivalent to the annual emissions of around 1 million gasoline-powered cars. All that carbon warms the planet more. More heat means more fire. More fire means more emissions. See the pattern? This dangerous feedback loop is accelerating, according to scientists. If we don't break the cycle soon, wildfires will grow more intense. How do we fight something this powerful? Wildfire suppression is no small task, but slowing the spread is critical to protect lives, homes, and ecosystems. On the ground, one of the most effective tactics is fuel management. That means clearing brush and even setting intentional fires. known as prescribed burns, to reduce what future fires can feed on. These methods aren't new. Indigenous communities have used these cultural burns for generations to restore balance and keep forests healthy. Then there's aerial suppression, helicopters and planes dropping water or fire retardant to control hotspots. You can think of it like building a box. Fire breaks and containment lines act as the walls, and aerial drops form the roof, keeping the fire boxed in. This approach was vital in January 2025 during the San Diego brush fires. Daily flare-ups driven by extreme drought and strong Santa Ana winds threatened neighborhoods across the region. It took fast action, coordination, and every tool available to keep the damage contained. But suppression alone isn't enough. We also have to tackle the root of the problem, climate change. As the planet warms, the fires are getting more frequent and more intense. Prevention means cutting greenhouse gas emissions, shifting to clean energy, improving public transportation, planting trees to absorb CO2, and building climate-resilient communities. If we don't act, wildfires will keep spreading, not just through forests, but into the places we call home. Wildfires are both a natural process and a growing threat. Understanding their multi-faced impacts is crucial for developing effective management and mitigation strategies. By combining scientific research with traditional knowledge, we can work towards coexisting with fire in a changing world. But coexistence requires action. It means restoring healthy forest ecosystems, supporting communities in fire-prone areas, and adapting our infrastructure to withstand future fire events. It also means empowering people through education, preparation, and policy to become part of the solution. As climate continues to shift, wildfires will remain a challenge, yet with resilience, respect for nature, and shared responsibility, we can reduce the damage and build a safer future for all.